Can we,
The next items are number 18 and 19 that are for the same property. Number 18 is a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 15-7191, block 482, lot 37, 200 Lafayette Street in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District Extension. A Renaissance Revival-style store and lofts building designed by John T. Williams and built circa 1893 to 94. And this application is to install signage and flagpoles. And the next one, number 19, is for a modification of use in bulk in the Borough of Manhattan. Docket number 15-7079, block 482, lot 37, also for 200 Lafayette Street in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District Extension, which is, and it's zoned M1-5B. Do I need to read the description again? Oh, the application is to request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a report to the City Planning Commission relating to an application for a modification of use pursuant to Section 74711 of the zoning resolution.
okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Timothy Shaw, Preservation Staff. 200 Lafayette Street is located on the northwest corner of Lafayette and Broome Streets within the Soho Cast Iron Historic District Extension. The proposal has two parts. One is to request the Landmark Preservation Commission issue a report to the City Planning Commission relating to an application for modification of use pursuant to Section 74711 of the zoning resolution. And the other is for the installation of new signage on the Lafayette Street facade and for the installation of two flagpoles at the corner of the building. Please
Yeah.
also note that the restorative work at the building has already commenced and was approved with 3 staff-level certificates of no effect that include a window replacement, facade repair, and the installation of restorative storefronts. Cast staff member Higgins Quays Bartlett Partners will present proposal
Okay.
in written.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Cass Stacker, Space Barton Partners. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Tim mentioned, there are two applications. One is for a special permit for a change of use to allow for retail use of the ground floor and cellar, and then an application for signage installation. Here with the current owners, General Growth Properties, Jerry Johnson of Fox Rothschild is here if there are any specific zoning issues, and Michael Bevis of CB Jacob Architects as well is here. So the work that we're going to be discussing is a scope of restoration work that will bring the building, or is in the process of bringing the building back to sound first-class condition, and as well is going to work to establish a basis for a cyclical maintenance program for the building for its long-term preservation. You can see an overall building photograph of the building as it appeared before work had started in 2012. It's a 7-story masonry and iron building, completed in 1894 and designed by John T. Williams, who was also the builder. Some historic photographs of the building on sheet 2E, not the next sheet in your set, but on 2E. A photo from a few years after construction of the building, looking north on Lafayette Street. We drew on this photograph in particular and zooming in to work with the staff on getting very accurate restorative details from the storefront. These other 3 photographs from the 1940s show some of the changes that had occurred to the building, but also shows how signage had been integrated into the lower floors of the building on Broome and Lafayette Street. And we look to this as a sort of guide for some of the incorporation of signage that we're proposing as part of our second application. Looking at the pre-work conditions, the facade had not been well cared for over the years. And at the outset of the project, most of the windows still had their original wood windows. Some aluminum windows had been installed, but the wood windows were in particularly poor condition. This is a photo of one of the upper floor windows in the arched openings. And then the other 2 photos on the top of that sheet 2A just show the rot at the jambs and the sills. And it also begins to show you the condition of the brownstone. Most of the building is brick-faced, but there are extensive use of brownstone and sandstone across the facade, deep projecting cornices. Those are in very, very poor condition at the start of the project. These images across the bottom showing open joints throughout the facade, overpaint from fire escapes, etc. And then some of the metal elements, a simple wrought iron fire escape that remained, and then pressed metal panels, spandrel panels on Broome and right at the corner of Broome and Lafayette, and these mullions, all that had been just painted a sort of brown color that had rust and just general lack of maintenance. Some other detailed photographs. The pressed metal cornice was in poor condition. Water had come in from the top. The underside of it had rusted out. Some of the brackets had fallen off, and it was in need of treatment. And then some detailed photographs here again showing the amount of loss of these projecting sandstone elements across the facades on Broome and Lafayette. 2C shows you then some photographs, pre-work photographs of the storefronts, non-historic infill set between original cast iron columns across both fronts of the building. Some of the cast iron had been repaired with not metal elements, so we're going to take those off and replace them with cast iron replication. And the proposal obviously also is to remove the non-historic infill, all the roll-down gates, some of this which predates designation, and insert new wood and glass storefront system. The courtyard, which is sort of an enclosed courtyard not visible from any of the adjacent properties, there are iron shutters just on the east elevation. Those will be repaired and reinstalled. Some photographs of the ongoing restoration work. As Tim mentioned, work is ongoing. Much of it has been done. The storefronts are sort of the next big effort, and the cast iron repair at the base of the building, and all that will be done quite soon. A photograph of the new pressed metal cornice at the top of the building, and then sort of in progress photos and completed photographs showing the cleaned and pointed masonry and terracotta, the rebuilt lintels and sills, and some of these rebuilt projecting brownstone elements across the facades. A lot of work has been done. It's been done at a very high level of quality, and we expect all the rest of this to be done as well, working with the staff. These elevations are sort of pre-work elevations that define the scope of work on the upper floors, calling out the restoration work of the masonry, the new cornice, the new windows, the restoration of the metal work, the cast iron elements on the upper floors, and the fire escape. Similarly, along Lafayette Street, the metal elements in this bay, the masonry in these bays, and the pre-work condition at the storefronts. These next two elevations are showing the proposed conditions. So here on Broome Street, showing the new configuration for the wood and glass storefronts, the grills down at the bulkhead panels, and the integration of small decal signage in the windows. I'll also point out that we're proposing flagpoles, two flagpoles centered above these pedimented entry points on Broome and Lafayette. Let me just go back to one photo here. Before the start of work, there were 4 flagpoles. You can see it on the cover sheet probably most clearly. There's a flagpole, and there had been 4 others, one here, one here, one here, and one here. Just this pole remained. I think the others had come down when the bridge went up, but the brackets were anchored right into the brownstone. So the proposed work that we're discussing today and that we're proposing to you is the removal of these 4 mounts and this one pole that are mounted onto the brownstone, removing those, repairing the brownstone with the same methodology as the rest of the brownstone, and installing 2 in place of those 4, one on Broome and one on Lafayette, and those will be anchored just to the wood.
Yeah, Cass, could you just address which of those, if any, were originally historic? Was there one on the building originally, or
Right.
in other words, what's their history, those 4?
So these 4, they were there at the time of designation. They look like they're perhaps 1990s era. They don't show up in our 1940s photographs. They were there. We feel that they have been installed really in sort of unsympathetic location onto the stone. So our proposal is to restore that masonry and then install these new flagpoles just onto the new wood window. On the base plate will be on the sill, and the tiebacks will be into the frames. Granted, flagpoles are not always included in sort of 74, 711 applications. We feel given the prominence of this building as a 7-story building and its location on Lafayette Street, which it's very much a commercial street, unlike some of the narrower streets within the Soho district, it's appropriate to have some sort of projecting elements. It doesn't, we think, sort of overwhelm the building in any way. So the two signage elements then are the flag poles at the corner, and then these two sign panels here on Lafayette Street. So those are the two other design elements that we're proposing. I'll just take you quickly through the storefronts. We have lots of detail in the handouts on the storefronts. I'm happy to go through that if you've got questions. But the idea is to work off of that 1900 black and white photograph, put in a new system of wood and glass storefront infill, drawing on neighboring examples of ironwork at the bulkhead panels, restoring the cast iron, and really sort of bringing the base of the building back to its original condition. And then you can see here sort of detail the two signage elements. These are panels that have just a very discrete sort of uplight underneath them, and then the flagpoles. And then finally, I'll just pass forward to this last sheet just to give you a sense of that detailing to address the question about the flagpoles. You can see in this section the flagpoles will be anchored to the new wood windows and not to the historic material that we'll be patching and tied back to the window frames. So together, the restoration work will bring about a sound first-class condition for the building and serve as a basis for a cyclical maintenance program. And the signage we feel is quite discreet for a building of this scale, and then given its location in the district, won't impact negatively on the other buildings or on this building.
Okay, good, Cass, thank you. Comprehensive, of course. Questions further?
Yeah,
Yes.
the signage is over the, pin letter signage is over the openings of what you, what plan to be entrances to the individual stores, retail establishments, I assume.
Correct. So the tendency is not yet known. So given the length of this elevation and also the architecture of the building, this sort of serves almost like a sign band. So we thought that it made sense to sort of do it in a symmetrical manner. There may, in the end, be a doorway here. So it seemed to make sense to sort of locate this based on the way the tenancy works.
I'm just asking for the rationale. Thank you.
Okay. Testimony? No? Community Board, unanimous approval on both parts of the application, or both applications, I should say. Okay.
Okay. I think that as a 74-711 goes, the degree of restoration of the building appears to be appropriate. The storefront details, the restoration of masonry and cornices all seem perfectly in order to me. The flagpoles of a building of this size and robustness don't strike me as terribly offensive. I could accept them, even though they are kind of wimpy and they feel somewhat extraneous to the building. But I think it's okay. The building can take it. My only suggestion would be that the signage. I think the use of a signage panel, a metal panel, and then pin letters on that. Seem a bit harsh and aggressive for the building. As Cass suggests, there is a natural sign band already. I would just suggest they use the illumination and the pin-mounted letters and skip the metal.
Fred?
Yeah, usually I think one flagpole is what we typically see, but I can see two here. The building is robust enough to take these two small flagpoles at the corner. I think I'm okay with the signage as is, but I would be okay with Michael's version as well. Let's just wait and see what others think.
Yeah, I could approve 2 flagpoles, and the signage, I think, is fine.
I, also think that the 2 flagpoles in this case are okay. Normally, I look for them over the principal entrance, but we don't exactly know what that is. But, and one on each side and corner location seems reasonable. I guess sort of corner. The signage issue, I can really kind of go either way on it. I think if it's possible for the signage to be prominent enough without adding a band and just using the pin letter, that'd be fine, but I don't have a
Maybe
real
leave it to the
problem with
staff.
it. Yeah, I don't have a real problem with this, so.
We can't act now anyway, and for 2 minutes at least, so there is a consensus for approval on both counts. Staff with you, the sign band issue, the signage issue, flagpoles, there were 3 at one point, right? I don't know, that was 4 here, 4.
Four.
Two's fine. But we'll take that action in a little bit and close this hearing right now. Motion second without objection. Thank you. We're going to do one more item. We're going to break for about a 20-minute lunch. And then at 1 o'clock, we'll try to take some actions. How's that?
Okay.
Recouping what? Oh, that.
Okay, now we're going to do, 200 Lafayette Street, numbers 18 and 19, and they're one is certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 15-7191, block 482, lot 37, and this is an application to install signage and flagpoles. The next one is for a modification of use in bulk for the same building in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 157079, and this is a request that the Landmarks Preservation Commission issue a report to the City Planning Commission relating to an application for a modification of use pursuant to Section 74-711 of the zoning resolution, and the building is zoned M1-5B.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Community Shaw Preservation staff, 200 Lafayette Street is located on the northwest corner of Lafayette and Broome Streets within Soho Cast Iron Historic District Extension. This is the building pre-work. The proposal is for the report for to get a modification of use and also for signage. The building had 3 staff level certificates of no effect for restorative work have already been issued and work has already commenced. You can see here some photos of the deteriorated condition and some of the work in progress. And that includes restorative storefronts as well as window replacement and facade repair. Then the other 2 elements to the proposal are for the installation of 2 flagpoles, one on Broome Street, one on Lafayette, and these flagpoles will be installed into the new window sills. The proposal is also for the installation of 2 sign panels at above the storefront infill on Lafayette Street. The consensus when presented this morning was for the approval with some adjustments to the signage to be worked out to the details of this signage to be worked out with staff.
And how are those adjustments, are you working those out now? I think we were deferring that to the staff in any event without necessarily having a conclusion. And the 2 flagpoles were acceptable because it had been 4.
On a sign board, so to speak, and Michael suggested maybe just have it on the sign, since it was almost like a.
Either way,
If it's
Yeah.
on sign panels, it's fewer penetrations and facade, so we may adjust the finish to match the rhinestones.
otherwise it was a total first-class restoration sufficient to meet their, by far, to meet the MOU.
Flagpoles and-
Yeah,
You
and
do-
there's the 2 flagpoles.
Do one, I'll do the next one. I'll do. Thank you.
Lafayette Street.
Okay, number 18,
Okay,
I'll do 19.
regarding 200 Lafayette Street in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District, the application is to install signage and flagpoles. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed metal sign panels will be installed in the location of the historic signage found at this building and at buildings of similar age and style found within the historic district, that the signage will be attached through mortar joints of plain masonry, and the installation will not result in damage of any significant architectural features of the building, that the use of painted metal for signs will be in keeping with historic signage material found at the buildings of within the historic district, that the proposed light fixtures will only illuminate the signage, and that the size of the fixtures will not detract from any significant architectural features of the building, and that the installation of the fixtures will not result in any damage to any significant architectural features of the building, that the flagpole installation will attach into non-historic new window sills, will not damage any significant features, that the flagpole length is well proportioned to the scale of the store and loft building, and that the cumulative amount of signage consisting of 2 panel signs and 2 flagpoles will not overwhelm the large-scale building.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's approved, and the MOU, which I'll now do, for 200 Lafayette Street also, Renaissance Revival Loft, Store and Loft. The request the LPC to issue a report to city planning relating to an application for a modification of use pursuant to 74-711 of the zoning resolution. Recommend approval, finding that the restorative work to be completed pursuant to CNE 13-1441, CNE 13-2290, and CNE 13-9450 will help return the building closer to its original appearance and will aid in the long-term preservation of the building. That the proposed restorative mechanical work will bring the building up to a sound, first-class condition and aid in its long-term preservation. That the implementation of a cyclical maintenance plan will ensure that the continued maintenance of the building will ensure the continued maintenance in sound first-class condition, and that the owners of the designated building have committed themselves to establishing a perpetual cyclical maintenance plan that will be legally enforceable by the LPC under the provisions of restrictive deck, which will bind all heirs, successors, assigns, and subsequent owners of the building, and which will be recorded at the New York County Registrar's Office. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's also approved. Now we got another MOU
What about all these?
thing coming here, something else, whatever is next.